Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saritah, our guest today, who is a long-time friend. And we were just discussing where we can't even remember where we met. Was it when I lived in Australia, or was it back here in the UK? But it seems a long time ago. And we both followed each other's work for quite a while. So welcome, Saritah, to the Solutions podcast. And so we're just going to see where this conversation goes. And as a little introduction to, Saritah and her amazing sounds and words, you probably kind of do win the prize for one of my all-time favorite musicians who, when I listen to your words, it's a bit like, sounds like me. And, having music which actually has a meaning to it. They're not empty words. There's some depth in the stories that you tell. I mean, not only are you a beautiful, amazing singer, but also it's really about the words that you choose to use and the stories you choose to tell. So what really inspires you in when you're writing a song? How does that process work for you? What do you decide to talk about?
Ooh, that's such a, firstly, thank you, Nicola. That means so much. I love hearing that. Yeah. I love that too when I listen to a song and I'm like, oh, that's how I feel about this or that. Songs. It's such a mystical. Sometimes I find walking a really great place, a really great companion, I guess, to songwriting, because you have the rhythm is already there, you're walking. And then it's easy. Then you have like a rhythmic framework and melodies can float on through. I'm thinking in particular right now of a song of mine called Here We Stand, which I wrote walking on the beach in Suffolk Park in the Byron Bay area. And at the time, there was about 1,000 people gathered nearby to stop fracking. There's a mine, a location that they ended up stopping that one. So it was like this combination, and I was walking on the beach, and a friend had written a track, and so I had that track playing. He'd written it specifically for me to write to, so I was listening to that in my headphones, walking on the beach, and this melody just came through. It was, here we stand on this land, mother provider. And I feel like it was the combination of that collective that was gathered nearby with that, unified intent. Also the walking, the rhythm, also the land, if you get out of your own way enough, really has a lot to say. So sometimes I feel like it's very much dependent on the land that I'm on too, as to what comes through. And
What you're reminding me of also is, the Aboriginals in Australia that talk about singing the song lines and how they pass these stories, through the lines, through these energy lines, through these song lines that have been passed on forever and ever, and they tell the story of the dream time, the story of that place. And where does this music come from? It comes from the land. And I think that sadly, many people in the Western world have just lost the ability to listen to the land, or to be still enough to actually stop and wonder.
Totally.
So yeah,
about it, like the voice is sounding, the voice it's an ancient technology. It's for reverence, to give thanks. I had the absolute honor of spending some time up in Yolngu country. So speaking of Aboriginal culture, which is up in the northeast Arnhem Land in the north of Australia. And of course, Arnhem Land is a colonized name. It's a Dutch name. It's named after who knows who, someone Arnhem. And anyway, Yolngu is the people and the language and the land. Yolngu country, they call it. And one morning, just to talk about like the relationship between the human voice and our, the living world around us. So one morning I got to take part in a bunch of women basically were told, let's gather. And we got up before dawn, and you couldn't really see anything, and you're just kind of following the woman in front of you. This was at a gathering called Garma. So it's a gathering both of mobs. Mob is what Aboriginal people call, oh, who's your mob? Tribes, I guess. Gathering of mobs from all over Arnhem Land. And then it was also this gathering for ethnomusicologists and anthropologists to come and like witness one of the oldest cultures in the world. So it's a huge gathering of all kinds of different people. And some of the women, we got to get up this morning, and so we're walking in the dark, we're just following the woman in front of us. And then after 5 or 10 minutes of walking in the dark, one by one, we start to sit down. And then one of the elder women, Yolngu women, started to sing. And I'm always in two minds about whether to try and emulate what she was, what it sounded like. And I usually decide to, because I think it helps like just experience the depth. So it's like a low monotone, like I'm gonna like this for I don't even know how long, because once you go into such a deep place, which is accessible via the voice, linear time ceases to exist. You just boom back into the oneness of everything. And so 20-30 minutes later she stops, and we open our eyes, and the dawn's starting to come in, and we realize we're sitting on the edge of this escarpment, and we're up high, and we're looking out over this land. I'm getting goosebumps. And her daughter, the woman who was singing, her daughter translated to us. She said, my mom is singing in the day. She was singing in all the different plants, the trees, the insects, the animals, the flowers, singing in the day. I don't know if you can see my goosebumps. I've got goosebumps. And it just blew my mind, because it's the most natural thing for humans to do. Such a reverent way to start the day. And
well, the birds do.
The goats,
the birds
they do. The birds haven't forgotten.
I mean, what more is there to sing to? The sun. It's like, without it, none of us would be here. And that remembering that, our lives are totally dependent on the elements,
Absolutely.
Without the soil, without the water, without the air, without the fire, none of us are here. And so this remembering of, wow, what more to rejoice in than, the sun, because, hey, what happens if it doesn't come up one day? So we better keep singing for it just in case. So, you kind of like wonder that same with the birds, like this joy that they have, and the dawn chorus, which is just incredible. We have in the UK, it peaks, April, May time, when, they are all out there, looking for a mate. And it's like, who can sing the best? And, and, it's like kind of like 4:30 in the morning. And at the kind of the peak dawn chorus time, I'll get up out of bed and I'll go for a long walk. And it is deafening. It's just incredible how, you know, this song where there's this kind of like real song off with them all like singing together. I mean, it's just amazing. But also I'm thinking about, you know, time back in Australia with the Aboriginal people who are the whale singers. And you know, there are some mobs and some peoples that really are deeply connected to the whale. And I remember a whale coming into Sydney Harbour, and the authorities were trying to get this whale out of the harbour. They weren't having much luck at getting it out of the harbour, and so they called one of the whale singers.
Wow.
And they took him out there, and he sung the whale back out into the ocean.
Wow.
And, you know, I just remember hearing that story, and it was like, wow, you know. And someone said, oh, yeah, you know, I mean, they're known, like certain headlands where the Aboriginal people would go to sing and to communicate with the whales. And it's like, you know, I mean, that kind of like blows our minds in our culture, this thought even of being able to communicate with nature. And what would nature say if we gave it the space? Which really, you know, reminds me of the great work of deep ecology with John Seed and Joanna Macy. And you know, they created this way of kind of like honoring, you know, all beings, and, you know, having humans step out of the role of being human and instead embracing a species and allowing those species to speak through them. And a bit like restorative justice, when they're all in a circle together, what's the communication that's said between them? And, you know, and how we can start really listening to other species. And, you know, I mean, they're coming out with these like crazy machines now where you can hear the sound of plants. Have you seen those gadgets?
The ones where you clip it on and
yeah. So I had another mind-blowing experience quite a few years ago. I was in California in the redwoods, and there was this kind of like redwood ceremony going on where for 3 days we just were with the redwoods, and we just drank redwood tea and fasted and went into kind of deep time with the redwoods. And this woman who was one of the participants, she also had this gadget. So she kind of, and she was a singer. And she said that she had plugged it in and heard this kind of sound coming through. And then unfortunately, we weren't all witness to this, but she said she'd got up and she'd gone to sing with the tree and to just see what happened. And there was this sound that was coming through the machine, but as she started to sing, she became aware of the noise changing that was coming through. And she said she really did feel that it was, you know, they were totally listening to each other. And I mean, you know, it just was such a mind-blowing way that she was telling us. It's like, really? So I mean, there's so much we don't know. And there's a community down in Italy called Damanhur, and for a long time that's been their thing, is plant communication and using the sounds of plants. And also, you know, these other kingdoms like the fungal world, and, you know, starting to think about how mycelium communicates. And, you know, it's just like, wow, there's this whole world of sound which is not perceivable to the humans. So we can only really hear a tiny amount of what's out there.
In the same way we can only see a tiny amount. Yeah, there's a whole orchestra out there. It's really mind-blowing. And, you know, I guess on some, not that I've actually journeyed with plant medicine in a long time, but you know, I remember how certain plant medicines affect sound too, as well as affect vision. And I mean, there's just so much. I definitely talk and sing to trees, and I completely, beyond like believing, like know that they respond in their own way. There's a huge pine tree on the way to the closest store to me. And I always greet it. I always, have a little moment, and I just know that this tree knows me and loves me and is grateful that I acknowledge it, because I don't think most humans do.
No. I mean, there's been some crazy science that has proven that they do recognize humans.
Absolutely.
And it's
And
like, and also
respond.
the and sound, that there was somewhere in India where they did this research where they did these comparison test sites where they played through speakers music to some crops. And
Mhm.
so there were crops that were planted at the same times. Some had music plant, and sure enough, the plants that had music played to them grew faster and healthier. And it was like, whoa, okay, well, if this is real, how imagine that as a standard thing, that crops were all having music played to them so that their resistance and their immune systems were better and healthier. I mean, there's this massive potential that we're just not tapping into.
So much, so much. Yes. I love that. And yeah, in the same way, well, because water, right, where everything's made up of water, and the work that Dr. Emoto did with that wasn't melodies, that was words, and the vibration, the frequency of the word, and the effect that that had on the water. I
And
need to remember to sing to my water more, and my
that's
food. If you sing to your food and sing to your water, I really think that it what's the word? Comes into a line, like heightens the nutritional value. One time, this isn't sound, but one time I remember reading that if you plant seeds, especially like edible, like food seeds, and you put some of your saliva in the soil, and or put your hand on top of it and hold it there for quite a while, that the plant will grow, the food that the plant grows will fill in the gaps of like where you're nutritionally deficient.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Such intelligence.
So why are we not like actually, putting vast amounts of money into researching this kind of stuff? It's like instead we, spend billions on, we won't go into all the other things that we're happy to spend money on, but actually investigating the potential in the communication with plants. It's just this whole, I mean, it's an exciting world that we're only just kind of tapping in. And I've been working with biomimicry. And one of the great things is actually it's just about shifting the way we think. And then instead of learning about nature, what is this tree's Latin name, and how long does it live for, and what can it do for me as a human? Instead of learning about it, instead we shift to learning from it. And instead we look at that tree and we're like, well, hey, how do you pump water from the roots right to the top? How do you photosynthesize? Sometimes you see a tree on a crazy gradient and it's like, hang on, but that's against gravity. How does it hold this weight, tons and tons and tons of carbon, and doesn't fall over? I mean, how is it doing this? And so, looking and learning from nature, the strategies and, and all the ways that it's successful. Because at the end of the day, like Janine Benyus said, that failures are fossils. So what's alive now has had so much evolution. It's doing its thing. And we've got so much to learn. And that's what, through my talks on biomimicry, I'm encouraging. people to just become more inquisitive. When you see something in nature, stop and kind of like look and ask questions. Why are you that color? And why do you take on that form? And how do you do this? And why do you do that? And start kind of like asking questions to these forms so that, you know, we can learn from them. But I mean, I love the idea of having people singing through, you know, having life forms expressing themselves through human voice. You know, what would the kingfisher sing about?
Oh my goodness, yes.
That's a challenge for you there. Pick an animal and channel what it has to say to humans.
Yeah, that's so deep. I've been doing a lot of support and like guidance for other women to awaken their voices. I think there's so much, not I think, I know, because this is what the women tell me over and over again, as they've all been told, or so many. And if it's not direct, if they haven't directly been told, then it's just they've turned it on themselves, the criticism of their voice. But you know, that to be quiet, or you don't have a good voice, or you can't sing, all these lies. It's all lies. And you know, it's like the Beyoncés and the whoever's of the world that get to be singers, but really every single one of us is a singer. Not to there's an amazing woman who wrote this book called, so Chloe Goodchild, she's from the UK, The Naked Voice. And she says to sing to express, not to impress. And really, yes, like singing is such an amazing way to express gratitude, to express reverence, to express whatever emotion it is that you're feeling. And yeah, it makes me think of how, you know, women have been silenced and voices have been suppressed for thousands of years, in the same way nature, like we haven't been listening to nature because we've been so loud. Everything's so noisy.
Yeah. And children, you know, they're not, I mean, don't hear that many children singing, do you? They're not encouraged to sing. And you know, you're really kind of just thinking about that from an early age, we're not encouraged to sing. It's not in our culture at all, really, to, you know, to sing.
Right. We went, there's another Chloe Goodchild. She says that we've gone silent. I mean, of course, Indigenous people, a lot of them are still singing. There's some choirs here and there, but for the most part, where every human used to sing as part of daily life, you know, you're making the food and you're singing, or you're washing your clothes and you're singing, or you're walking, gathering and you're singing, you know. And we've, for the most part, gone really silent. And I really believe that us awakening our voices is, you know, each of us has this voice that's the only one of its kind in all of creation that ever will be. And so each of us has a part of the puzzle, a part of the symphony, a part of the orchestra, you know.
Well, that's a good challenge, isn't it, to anybody that's listening? So the next time they go out for a walk, to find that singing voice inside ourselves without judgment and without criticism, and you know, just being of seeing what actually would happen if you weren't worrying about what you sounded like, or if somebody was listening to you, or someone was going to judge and criticize you. But if you were to let go of that, and like, you know, you've just said, sing for reverence, sing, you know, for the beauty of the day, sing to give thanks. I mean, maybe we need to be in a place where we feel like, you know, in a forest somewhere where nobody will hear us, and going out by the ocean, and just seeing what happens if we give thanks through song. because gratitude is also something that is so desperately missing.
Yes.
And, you know,
The
for
land
us,
loves it. The
yeah,
land loves it. Maybe, you know, when you do that, have this curiosity or this knowing that, you know, the land is, someone's singing, like it's a human singing. That you're spreading joy not only to yourself and your cells in your body, but to the land. And the birds love it too. There's this, I feel like I cut you off.
no, carry on.
There's this place I used to go to a lot when I was staying in Santa Cruz. I don't know if you were in Santa Cruz when you were talking about the redwoods. There's redwoods there too. Amazing. There's this lagoon, and I used to go there and sing. There's this what do you call it? Boardwalk, this wooden sort of elevated walkway through the lagoon, and it takes you to the middle of like the lagoon, and you can just sit and take in the beauty of it all. And I would go out there and start singing, and within seconds, every single time, the swallows would come. Zoom, zoom, they start flying overhead. And if I didn't sing, they didn't come. The birds love it, and the land loves it, and the water loves it. And I mean, obviously, Indigenous people know this, have been knowing this. And I think it's just finding a way, finding our way, finding our voice, and remembering that.
And how it feels when we come together and sing, you know, it can be so uplifting. And you know, I feel kind of sorry that I'm not in a place where I can, you know, go and sing in a group of people. But you know, on the odd time that I've been able to sing with others, yeah, there's just something so magical and so uplifting. You just, everyone's smiling and you feel good, and that, you know, it's like greater than the sum of the parts.
Totally.
And like you say, it's like that sound, especially when you think it's like a group of people, you know, it will never happen again. It's always going to be different. And you know, kind of years, a long time ago, I used to do these crazy sounds. It's when I was living in Australia, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I would just be out walking by myself, and I would just suddenly stand still, and I would just make sound. I wasn't singing. I was just kind of doing a drone, doing a tone, which then turned into an overtone, and I'd get these amazing sounds that would come through me. And I never classed myself as a singer. I was like, okay, this is just sound coming through. And when I questioned myself as to, you know, what is all this about? Like, what are these sounds? And then I kind of thought that, oh, well, maybe I'm like an acupuncture needle. And I'm just sending this sound down wherever I am, and you know, with no attachment to what happens. It's just I'm sending the sound down, and may it go wherever it's needed. And you know, it was amazing. I met this old Aboriginal woman, and we ended up talking, and I told her I was doing this, and it's when she told me about the song lines. And she just said, you're singing the song lines. And she gifted me a map of Australia with the song lines on it. And she said, go to where these lines cross and do your sound in these places. So I was like, okay. So I did. And oh, that's right. What was it called?
You still have the map?
No, I don't. I gave it to a dear friend in Australia. And so I went to this one place on the East Coast, south, in between Sydney and Byron. It's got quite an alternative community there.
Bellingen?
Yeah, Bellingen. And that was really just outside Bellingen was one of these lines that was crossing. So I was like, okay, I was going down the coast. I'm going to go to this place. So I found myself beside a river. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is where I'm going to go. It's just by myself, and I get out, and I'm kind of by the river, and I just do this thing, just make this bit of sound. get in my van, and then reverse straight into a tree.
Oh,
So it's like totally ungrounded, in this other world of like, actually, I was not prepared to, deal with a moving vehicle. But yeah, just like this unknown. And I've never really kind of gone down that, well, what was it all about? And what was I doing? It was just following that intuition in me that was saying, hey, let's just make some noise.
yeah.
I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, I love
Different
that.
way.
I never knew that. That's so awesome to know that, Nicola. Yes, and the land loves it. And you are having it is of benefit, It's such a, I don't really have the words to, there's some things that are sort of beyond words, aren't they? But it is of benefit. Imagine if, thousands of humans did that with that intent, because the intent is so much part of it. The song lines, I mean, I'm not really qualified to speak about song lines, but it's just such, I love that you brought that up, because it's just such integrated concept, like song creation, the cosmology of Australia, the creation stories. Yeah, follow these song lines. It's such a, when you see the picture of them from above, because most Aboriginal art is like from above, right? Bird's eye view. And you see, oh, well, it's all connected. All the tribes are connected. All the land is connected. And these song lines, these pathways, who knows how many thousands of years, tens or hundreds of thousands of years. It's just so profound, beyond, definitely beyond like a cerebral comprehension. Yeah, but once you get once you get in that sound in your body and your cells are buzzing, there's no sort of need to understand it, because you feel it, because you become it, and you know that the sound is of benefit, that it's healing, that it's clearing, that it's, doing what it needs to do, that it has an inherent intelligence.
Well, I'm feeling that there, there's all this sound inside you. And could we have a musical interlude from all this chat? And is there any song that's coming to your mind that you would like to share now?
Yes, there is actually, that I've been thinking about it since we moved on from the inspiration part. I was talking about the inspiration. So there's this song which it came through years ago, and I'm finally releasing it on November 4th. And it's called I Long. And the chorus is, the whole concept is, I long to see the land as it once was, before, humans got so busy trying to dominate it. But the concept landed in me when I was, ironically, in an airplane flying out of Sydney. And so, Sydney's this huge sprawling city, and just north of Sydney is this huge sprawling national park. And when I flew over, and all I could see was just green, it turned from like the white of the buildings to the green of the forest, the national forest, national park. And I realized, oh, the entire area of Sydney used to look like this. And from that moment, I just, everywhere I went, I had this inquiry of, oh, what did this land look like, 200 years ago, 400 years ago? Because it's not that long, really. Australia, it's been colonized for 230 odd years, 240 years. It's not that long at all in the whole scheme of things. So this inquiry of, oh, what did, and this grief for all that's been lost. So it's called I Long, and the chorus goes, I long to see, yeah, yeah, the land as it once was. I long to be, yeah, yeah, what I always was. Distant memories, yeah, yeah, within each of us. I long, woo, I long, yay. And then I feel like doing the verse. Verse one
Yes,
goes,
please.
verse one goes, I go down to the river, listen to the birds and water. Ooh, now I feel like a human being ought to. I seek green amidst the gray, color and sound, light in my day. And I never lose faith, 'cause somehow I never lose faith. It's so much and it's so overwhelming, and yet I just have faith in life. Like life, not just human, like life to continue, whether we're here or not. I guess it will. And then verse 2, I'm all hyped up now. Verse 2, I have to sing it for you because you're such a, well, you're a biomimicrist. I'm a biomimicrologist, and you were talking to me about thinking like a tree in a previous conversation. And we've been talking about talking to trees. So verse 2 goes, these rocks, these trees, they speak to me. Wisdom of ancestry, oh, the things they've seen. Just as the river once ran to the sea. I long, woo, I long, yay.
Yay! Hear that song now. Yay! Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Gosh, it's going to be a whole other thing hearing it with all the
Oh,
music and
yeah.
the instruments. And who are you playing with? What kind of instruments have we got on this track?
This track, it's actually, I love how it turned out because the producer, so I found this incredible producer in Finland, and this is the second track of mine he's worked on, and I don't know what it is. I haven't been to Finland, but he seems to just really get it. When I say I haven't been to Finland, it makes me think of just Scandinavia. I feel like in general, maybe life is more connected with nature on a whole than, say, life in some other places. So he ended up so my process has been that because I have production skills and I'm about to like next level them, but my process has been that I make a demo to the best of my ability and then I send it off to a producer. So this one I did some drum programming, some percussion, bass, guitar, acoustic guitar, maybe a couple of little synthy moments. And I sent it off to him. He ended up keeping my acoustic guitar, which I loved, and he ended up keeping some of the percussion that I programmed, which I love. And I just feel like he really honored the song, what the song wanted to be. So there's space in it, and then there's like hugeness in it too. It sort of goes between the two. And he even put some water and some birds in there that just really grounded. And yeah, I love it. And then I made a video for it in Death Valley. The concept is, well, you'll have to come and see it, but there's the concept of, you know, we're in the middle of the desert, that there's not much life there. And of course, here in California, you know, and so many parts of the world, that line about just as the river once ran to the sea, there's so many dry riverbeds here. There's so many, you know, places that are called such and such, you know, crossing, and there's no water there anymore. It's just, there's so much it's dried up. Yes. So the other image that comes to mind, or the when I was writing that song, because some songs take a while. Some songs, it's like you're on this medicine journey of just distilling. You're sort of in service to what wants to come through. I was living in Melbourne, and I would ride my bike along the creek. There's a lot of great creek and bike paths that run along the creek in Melbourne. And I would just, the rocks, and there was this big mama tree. It must have been hundreds of years old. And there was that inquiry, what has this tree seen? You know, this tree's been around here since before it was colonized. And what stories, again, like if we could really listen, what stories would this tree have to tell? Yeah.
Well, I think that is a good note for us to end this on, to remind all of ourselves to really start to listen like we have never listened before. And you know, that's through the sound that you make, and then the silence that comes after that. So, you know, it's like without the space in the music, it would just be a big noise. And sometimes we forget that it's actually, you know, so important, those spaces and those bits of silence. But just before we finish there, that Saritah has invited me on 11/11 to help us to get this word out, this amazing song, the upcoming album that will be coming out. So maybe you would just like to just mention what's going to be happening on that day.
Yes, 11/11. So it's going to be a launch event for this song, I Long. And beautiful synchronicities of life is that, you know, I think you reached out to me just around the time when I was visioning this, and I had this light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, Nicola's like literally the most inspiring person / speaker that I know. And oh, it would be amazing to collaborate on an event and show. So it's going to be a premiere for this video that we made in Death Valley, and I'll talk a little bit about the song. And I want it to be a space for people to express the grief, the eco-anxiety, as you said before when we were talking, that they've been feeling, this overwhelm of what can I even do, you know, and for Nicola to shine her light of being a solutionist and to get us, you know, motivated, to give us some clarity of, oh, actually, there's so much one person can do. So it'll be a space to gather, to share, you know, what we've been feeling, and also to get inspired with what we can do.
That sounds great. So how are people going to find out?
They are going to sign up. There'll be a link in my Instagram bio. I'll be sending a link out. If you want to mail people on your list, I can send a link. So it'll be on Zoom. It'll be a Zoom link. Yeah.
So will this also be on your website, the information, or just on Instagram? Or so if people look up Saritah with an
Right.
H.
Yes, I will put it on my website. That's a great idea. The world is so social media focused these days that it's like I sometimes forget to put everything on the website
Well,
too.
it's so interesting because what I'm kind of like learning is that there's one mob that just does Instagram, another lot does Facebook, another lot does LinkedIn, another lot does Twitter, and quite often they don't do them all. So
Now
people choose their medicine, they choose which, how they're going to communicate. And so I think, at least through kind of a website, we can kind of have all those links to all those other social media platforms. And as a way to, if you're not on Instagram, then this is, how you can find out. But I will also put the links in after this video, after this podcast. So I thank you so much, Saritah, for sharing your voice, your beauty, your wisdom, and for all the people for listening. So thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for everything you're doing. Oh my goodness. So grateful for you sharing your voice.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Soon. Bye.